Can you use systems to enhance your leadership in business? I believe you can. And I'm going to tell you why in this video. So I've been going through a 90-day challenge. Let me get this cover off my thing there. It was distracting. I've been going through this leadership challenge that I've been hosting with members of my tribe. And this is the first time I've done a leadership challenge before. And I got to tell you, it's a bit of a stretch because I have a leadership masterclass, which is based on 3 pillars of trust, vision, and communication. And while there are plenty of other folks who have written many things around leadership, John Maxwell, James Kouzes, Barry Posner, on and on and on. I certainly don't consider myself to be an expert in leadership, but when I look back and I'm like, you know what, I got some street cred here. I think actually I can talk a little bit about this and do this for 90 days. Well, I'm going through a lot of leadership books right now. And when and I'm a systems guy. So for those of you who know and have read my book, The Time Wealthy Advantage, there's a link in the description, by the way, if you'd like the book for way cheaper than on Amazon. I'll even sign it and send it to you. And there's an additional bonus, but you have to go and check it out yourself. Anyway, so I'm working on my next book right now, which is The Time Wealthy Leader Boss. And Leader Boss is really about the whole idea of a boss that relies on their position of leadership, kind of like, you have to listen to me because I said so. But really a true leader and ultimately a leader boss understands that it's not just about being a nice guy, which if you're too nice, you get run all over, or being a, total total tyrant where no one will respect you. And everyone will just, do just the basics that are necessary and no further. So when I was thinking about all of these different things going through my mind, and I was like, okay, so in terms of the system's good, right? But the reality is a system is only going to take you so far. So when you think about that for a hot second, you're like, okay, well, if a system is only going to take me so far, that's where leadership steps in. Because yes, you can have leadership, but if you don't really have a good system in place, like think about the military, the American military, there's lots of systems in place to make sure that, training is done on a time schedule, that people follow, they're showing up when they're supposed to show up, and they're leaving when they're supposed to leave, and like all of these things, and even development, right? Like I know when I was in the Marine Corps, they really didn't have like a system for making sure that you were doing the thing, but if you for doing like continuing education, but if you wanted promotion, you would do well to take the initiative, right? It's like that's item number 4 that Napoleon Hill talked about in his 15 laws of success, right? Number 4, the law of number 4 was initiative and leadership. Take the initiative, take and move forward with that. So it's just interesting that can you think of leadership in the context of a system? Well, I do. I think that you can. And I'll give you a couple of examples and then we'll just, we'll wrap this video up. It's going to be a short one. So if you're thinking about leadership in the context of how you can use a system to help enhance your leadership, well, think about it this way. Could you put reminders in your calendar, for example, to help you remember to reach out to people that your direct reports that maybe need your support, that maybe where you're checking in with them to say, hey, do you have the resources that you need, right? And the resources, do you have the time to do this? Do you have the money or other assets? Do you have the people that you need? Do you have the information that you need, right? Those are all resources, right? So you got time, money, people, information. Do you have those 4 things to help make the best decisions that you can, right? And and are you having leadership conversations with them? Because if you're never having these leadership conversations with them, where do you think this is just going to magically appear? You think it's just going to like, oh, wow. Like, I remember very specifically developing and working with people in my organization. Granted, I had a small property management company, but I absolutely poured into the people who really wanted to be poured into. In fact, I poured into everybody. Some people received it. Some people couldn't have cared less. Right? It didn't stop me though. It didn't stop me from pouring into anybody who was there. So, but I did that systematically, right? I had a spreadsheet. I reached out and said, oh, it's been a minute since I've actually talked to them. That's a system. Another way where you can think about how often, once a quarter, like say, like, how often are you training your folks? Like once a quarter, you could be setting this up for a tickler to say, hey, we need to be making sure that we're budgeting out for the next quarter for training. We need to be making sure that we're budgeting out for the next 2 weeks for continuing education or things like that. And then during your evaluations, right? Or your interviews, like however you want to consider those. In those midterm, quarterly evaluations, annual evaluations, do you have a line item that says what and challenges them? What have you done for learning? What are you doing for learning? What did you do from learning from last time? Let's take a look. Oh, wow, you said you were going to read a book a week. How well did you do? Did you track it? Right? Those sorts of things. Or and it shouldn't be a surprise, right? These are conversations that you should be having along the way, so you don't get to the end of the year and they're like, "Yeah, I didn't read anything," right? Like you should be checking in with them, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, what they said that they want to do, what you are holding them accountable to, and that is what a leader is. When you take a manager and you apply good coaching skills, the alchemy that exists between a good manager and coaching is what creates a leader. That I truly believe. So when let's stick with this in the context of a system. Can you, for example, have an agenda for every one of your meetings? I do. I have a very strict agenda for my meetings, which begins with wins and victories. It could be anything. Could be personal. Could be professional. Either way is fine. Or really whatever it is. Could be a gratitude item. Whatever. I started out with getting them into a positive state of mind. Then from there, I move into a core value. And one of the 5 core values of the business of Strategic Boardroom, for example, is one of my favorite ones is always creating legends, right? Creating legends in the minds of others. I want to create a legend in your mind about someone that I'm talking about. I want to brag on them. I want to build them up in your mind. I want to set such a powerful pre-frame for that person in your mind that you're going to like, man, they are a rock star. I'm not going to embellish, but they do have, if they've got skills, I'm going to let you know what they are. Right? That's creating legends in the minds of others, right? So that's a core value. So we may bring that up. Hey, let's talk about the core value. Hey, what do you think this core value means? We discuss it for 2 minutes and then we move on and then we get to the rest of the agenda. I have just given my DNA a little inoculation just to make sure that it's that the core purpose, the core values of the business, that the DNA of the business is set for continuity going into the future. Because again, at the end of the day, if you don't have a strong company culture, and that's where it comes from, is those defined core values that are constantly revisited over and over and over. So if you don't have a defined set of core values, your company culture is going to be defined by the person with the strongest personality in the room. Pay attention to that. Your company culture is going to be defined by the person with the strongest personality. So if that's you, that's great. But what happens when you're not around? Okay. And if it isn't you, okay, well, what happens when you're not around? Who's the bully? Who's calling the shots? Who's the shot caller in the office? That's a big deal. That's something you should know. And what happens when that person leaves? And like, what happens when that person leaves the organization? It leaves a vacuum. It leaves chaos. It may not necessarily be a bad thing because they might be bringing utter poison into the office. But the point is, this is why it's really important to have a defined set of core values to help determine what the company DNA is and determine what the company culture is. That's really important. And that is systemic. That is part of building out the system. So I really do believe that you can use a system to enhance your leadership in your business, and you should. And then one final thing I'm going to say about that is, if you don't do this, if you don't have strong leadership skills, you got to be thinking about this for just a second, that they may not have strong, your direct reports or the people that work for you, they may not have leadership at anywhere in their life. No one is throwing an arm around their shoulder. No one is building them up. And if you're the one to do that, I think it's every boss's moral obligation to do it. You might be thinking, wow, that's a little harsh. No, then go find another thing to do, because when you are bringing these people into your organization, they're relying on, obviously, on a paycheck, but you might be the only person in their life that's a positive voice. And for some people, they've come back to me years after, and I had some people I had to let go just because they were not a good fit. They were not in alignment with my core values. And then some people came back and said, man, I effed up a really good thing, and I'm sorry. Hey, man, it's okay. Are you better now? Yeah, I'm way better now. Awesome. I love that. So that's why I'm saying, for you, I think that leadership is everything on the other side of systems. You get your systems built out, take the Viper method, build out your systems. And then on the other side of this, you'll have leadership. And that's what I'm writing about, Leader Boss. So Leader Boss is supposed to be shooting for to have it released in the spring of 2026, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be done sooner. I don't know. All right, that's all I have. If you are interested, real quick, because I tend to forget things. If you are interested in joining the Facebook group, this is the Time Wealthy Advantage Facebook group. Looks just like that. The link will be in the description, and it says no jerks allowed. I'm serious. There's no jerks. So if you come, don't be a jerk, because you will get the boot. All right, that's all I have, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you guys next time.